Hey, what is going on, everybody? How are you all doing today? I hope you all are having a wonderful and fantastic day today, and if not, hopefully you all will have a better tomorrow. So today we are going to be reviewing RWBY Volume 6, Chapter 10, Stealing from the Elderly. Now, as you can tell, this is the chapter that is setting up the boss battles, and while it may have actually been short, there's still a good amount that can actually be said about this chapter. So, sit back, relax, I hope you all enjoy, and let's go ahead and get started. So the beginning of this chapter actually starts out with the Argus base, and how everybody has decided to actually go with Jean's plan of trying to actually steal an Atlas ship so that they can fly their way into Atlas, and so they can continue on with trying to get the next relic, and warning Ironwood of what's to come with Salem's forces. And so one thing that has been brought up, which I have to bring up at the beginning of this, is there is a soldier that we see that some people believe may possibly be Neo, and it could be. Then again, it may not also be Neo at the same time, considering that if you remember back to Chapter 2 of Volume 6, when Cinder was looking around, she saw herself on the wanted sign. You have to remember, it was almost a month since the Haven attack had happened, and if you remember, Volume 6 is supposed to take place 2 weeks after the Battle of Haven. So then you have the 1 week of Cinder having to wait for her information to find out where Team RWBY had gone off to, and she fought Neo. So you have to remember, there is a big time skip for Cinder and her whole part. So realistically, this could be Neo, this might not be, but if it is Neo, then they really got there fast. That's all I'm going to say. But, you know, it still could be Neo, but we'll just have to see. But anyways, so continuing onward, Cordovan is talking to Weiss about how she's happy that Weiss came to her senses and how everybody was just devastated that Weiss had gone to Beacon rather than actually staying at Atlas, but now that she's going back to Atlas, maybe she can follow in her sister's footsteps. And you can definitely tell that Weiss is really ecstatic about that statement. Yeah, not really. She didn't really care that much for that statement. And then Cordovan tells Weiss that she's going to make sure that her best guards are the ones to escort Weiss to Atlas, and make sure that General Ironwood knows about it. I mean, well, thing is, the two best guards, if they're the best guards, then I don't want to see what the worst ones actually are. But anyways, so then they're going to try to take Weiss's bag because they want to help her out, and so Weiss tells them, oh no, don't do that, everything's fine. And so Saffron actually has a plan with the kid named Adrian, and he starts crying, and this is like a huge scream. You just see sound waves come from this. And I'll say, if that kid were to grow up to be a huntsman, and if his semblance actually turned out to be this crying or screeching coming from the crying or something to that sort, then he could be like RWBY's equivalent to Black Canary, having similar powers to her, where he could just screech and just make sound waves. That would be nuts. That would be pretty crazy. But, so yeah. So that was a part of the plan to try to distract the guards. And of course, they are wanting to consult the child because he's crying. And Saffron plays it off as if it's because, oh, look, he's going to miss you so much. And so Cordovan seems to be very skeptical of this. But then she walks away. Weiss gets on board, and it turns out that in the briefcase was Maria. So this was their plan, to get Maria on board so that she could actually fly the ship. And so they made it on board, and that's part one of the plan. So once Weiss is meant to actually get out of range for the signal, that's whenever they're going to go to the relay tower, and Blake is going to take care of that. So to make it seem as if the relay tower went on the fritz again, because that's what's been going on. And what I actually like that they did for this, and I had said this previously before, is that there was a way to use this to make Terracotta herself actually be involved within the plot, since she was the one who would be there to fix the relay tower. And so now that she's being involved, telling Blake what she needs to do to make sure that they lose the signal and that they can't have them on the radar, I like that they involved Terracotta in this way, because they wouldn't just put in a character for no reason. They wouldn't just put a character to be there just to be there and do nothing or not even help out and all. But she was a support character in the regards of saying, hey, look, I'm going to help you. get into Atlas, and I like that she actually tells Blake of what to do with the relay tower. So it's very good to see that they put Terracotta in the plot somehow to support, because like I said, I had a feeling they would do this. They wouldn't just put in a character just to be there for no reason, that they would put a character in there to support in some way or form. So Terracotta helping them take down the relay tower is good. So I'm glad that they actually made a way to do this, and they had a little bit of comedy here with Terracotta and Blake's conversation, how Blake said, "Oh, don't worry, it's not like this isn't the first time I've taken down Atlas Security." And then that's what Terracotta just responds with, "Never happened," because she didn't want this conversation to ever be known. Kind of weird to me, because you would think it's kind of like how phone calls are monitored. You would think that conversations through scrolls would be monitored, but apparently they're not. So that's interesting to me that they would never try to monitor conversations, because there could be conversations over scrolls that could lead to evidence and crimes, and I don't know how they wouldn't try to record that stuff. But hey, you know what? Whatever. Maybe it just doesn't matter to them. Maybe they just don't care enough. But when you notice that Blake is going off to the relay tower, you can tell that within Yang's look, she's concerned, because it makes sense she'd be afraid that Blake would run away again, considering that she's done that before, twice actually. So with Yang having concern here, I don't blame her on that one. But that's something I did notice by the way she was looking at Blake here. And so when she states, "Should I come with?" that's when Blake tells her that, no, you shouldn't, because the more of us there are, the more that they'll notice that they're intruders, which will alert Atlas military. So they are trying to avoid this problem. And so that's actually smart on Blake's part. Besides, she goes on to also state that Yang's specialty is definitely not stealth. And that's true, because Yang is someone who kind of busted into a club and kind of made it just one big brawl. So, yeah, I can't really blame Blake there. But that's when Blake becomes concerned with her statement, because whenever she said that she would protect Yang before, it made her upset. So she's trying to then make things better by saying that Yang's great. And so then that's when Yang actually goes on to tell Blake to go on ahead. And it makes sense, because when you look at Blake, Blake has been the stealthy member of the group. She is the one that was based off of a ninja. So, yeah, I can see where Blake would be one to go on to do this job. And she's usually been one to take care of this job pretty swiftly. So, yeah. And she also has good expertise when it comes to Atlas Security and taking it on, considering she was a part of the White Fang at one time. So this job and this role for Blake here in this situation makes sense. And what I like next is that Jean is saying that his plan was going perfectly. This is what I like, is seeing this nerdy like Jean here. He's so happy about it, and then he tries to act like he's a part of the mission. Good. I'm glad to see this side to Jean. Like I stated, the last chapter has made me start to like Jean again. He is starting to seem more like himself, and I'm very glad that they're making him really more like himself again. I really like that. And even Nora and Ren's reaction to this is like, oh man, yeah, that's typical Jean. And I do like that. Now, I'm not saying don't have development for Jean. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't like the direction that they took him in volumes 4 and 5. And ever since he actually got to have closure with the whole Pyrrha situation, I'm glad. I think that this is good, and I'm really starting to like him again. I find him enjoyable in this chapter as well as the previous one. Now, the first part of their plan is starting to work with ease. It's starting to go well, and it's starting to actually continue to go the way they wanted it to. Then, once Weiss notices that she's out of signal range, that's when she takes out the guards. And I thought there was one little funny moment with one of the guards before he gets knocked out. He says, "Traitor!" and then he gets knocked out. And then they're just floating there, and one of the guards says, "This parachute will not excuse your treachery!" I actually thought that was pretty funny. Then Maria takes the helm of the ship, and Weiss then asks her if she's sure she could fly this ship. And that's when Maria says that, "I was the Grim Reaper. I was the best huntress in my generation." I have a question. How does that make you a pilot? I just want to know, because I don't remember any huntsmen or huntresses piloting a ship. I don't know how that actually makes her a good pilot. So, yeah, that's one thing. And another, where did best huntress of your generation come from? Because I remember you being legendary, but not known as the best huntress of your generation. So that's a new one added to your title, apparently. That's something I didn't realize here, but okay. Anyways, and then Maria puts this piece into her eyes that actually gives her the data to the sensor array, but I don't really see how that helped her eyes. And then I really agree with Weiss on this one because she's still trying to question that, and Maria's just trying to act like there's nothing to worry about, and then she's just trying to keep Weiss quiet so that she just keeps flying. So I understand why Weiss fastened her seatbelt there. I would be a bit concerned myself also. So then RWBY is confirming that the next part of the plan is actually working, but then it seems that the relay tower has not been taken care of. So RWBY asks Yang what's going on over there, and Yang doesn't know what's going on either. That does seem a bit concerning, doesn't it? Considering that Blake said that she'd be back in just a moment, that it wouldn't take that long, and then the next thing you know, she's not back? That is concerning. It's kind of a question that leaves into your mind, could there have been somebody that could have been following her? We'll get to that in just a moment. So in the base, something picks up on the radar, and Cordovin tries to find out who's flying in their airspace. And the officer then tells her that apparently it was one of their ships. Now, I don't know if anybody feels that this reminds you of anything, but this reminds me of Return of the Jedi, when the rebels had stole an Imperial shuttle and Luke and his friends were trying to make it to Endor. And this reminds me of the Imperials seeing that the shuttle was going to Endor, and they tried to ask for the code of what the serial code was to their ship. It reminds me of that exact moment, and they obviously knew it was the rebels, because Vader knew his son was on that ship. But it reminds me of this situation where it's done a little differently, but it reminds me of that when Maria tries to play it off as if she is one of their own, and then they realize that an old woman isn't flying any of their ships. So even though Maria knew their jargon, the problem was they caught her because she was an old woman. And one thing I have to say is that Maria thought that her mind was going, that she even questioned why they let her fly a ship. And here's what this kind of makes me question. That Maria might have dementia. Now, I don't know that, but it kind of makes me think she does, because she even said that her mind was going. Why would you let me fly the ship? It made me kind of wonder, does she potentially have this? And that's kind of sad to think about, but that might be something that she might have. And Cordovin gets very frustrated that Maria had stolen one of her ships, and that she states that if she doesn't bring it back, that she will make an example out of her with the power of the Atlas military! Sorry, every single time I think of Cordovin talking about this, it reminds me of von Stroheim from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I can't help it. It just reminds me of that every time. But Maria then goes on to make a joke about it, talking about how she does not care, and she's eating the cashews that got her in trouble in the first place with the Atlas military. So this only makes things worse on her slate with Cordovin, and this makes Cordovin go over the top. She is absolutely livid, and she is prepared to fight back now. And this was yet again another moment that made Maria a great character, in my opinion. I just enjoy Maria, and this really solidified that more to me. Then Weiss proceeds to contact RWBY, asking her why they know where their location is, and that Cordovin is catching on to them. And that Maria is obviously not making the situation any better. And with Maria not complying to the demands of Cordovin and the Atlas military, it's only making the situation that much worse. And RWBY is not sure why they were detected either, because the tower should have been down by Blake at this point in time, but apparently it's not. So this is when Yang decides that she's going to go figure out what the problem is, and she drives onward. But then the next thing is, Crow then thinks that Cordovin is going to scatter her fighters, and that within 90 seconds they are going to be all over Maria and Weiss and try to eliminate them. So he then starts to blame himself for the situation at hand. Jean asked if it was Crow's semblance, but Crow says that every decision he's ever made has always been a mistake, and that him and also Ozpin were the problem here in this situation, and that bringing them all along was his mistake, that he should never have brought any of the children along with him. So that's the funny thing, he's not wrong here, because that's exactly what he did. It's what Ozpin even did as well when it came to Team Stark, as told by Raven, and even with Team RWBY, bending the rules for them to go on missions that they weren't actually supposed to be able to go on. So Crow's not wrong here. RWBY then states that they're all doing the best that they can, they're all sticking together, and that they would have come on this mission whether Crow invited them to join or not, but she states that it's not his responsibility when it actually is. If you think about it, Crow was the one who told RWBY about the upcoming attack on Haven at the end of Volume 3, which led them to form Team Ranger and go to Haven to try to protect it. He intentionally did that because he knew they were going to. And see, this is his responsibility. So Crow is right in this situation, and RWBY's actually wrong here. And that's when Crow goes on to also state that, when did you grow up so fast? And RWBY said it's because she had good role models. But things haven't gotten so easy at this point, because looking at it, Cordovan has really gone over the edge. She takes a giant mech that should be used to probably take on huge Grimm that may attack Argus, to make an example, as she stated, out of children. No, she hasn't hit the loony bin. No, I'm just waiting for the men in the white coats to take her back to the Happy Hotel. You know what I'm saying? Because, oh boy, is she crazy. She is nuts. This is that moment that Cordovan just finally went, "Arrgh!" I mean, you want to talk about insanity? She's trying to also state that let this be a reminder of the Atlas military's power. More like, let this be a reminder of someone that has gone literally insane. Because Cordovan is crazy. I cannot emphasize that enough. So, she takes a shot at Maria and Weiss, and she misses, but she intentionally does it, and the shockwave actually hits the ship, though. So, they take a little bit of damage there, and Weiss asked Maria if she was okay, and she was fine, but she even states that Cordovan has gone crazy. And yeah, that's true. That's exactly what I said. She's gone crazy. So then Cordovan states that, do you think you children can actually defy me? I mean, to be fair, they took on Roman when he was in the Elysian Paladin 290, but this is a completely different monster altogether, and they are going up against the full might of an Atlas military base this time as opposed to Roman. And he had the Elysian Paladin 290, but this is a completely different monster altogether. And RWBY tells Weiss that she's going to need her on the ground. So RWBY has a plan to take down Cordovan, it sounds like. So we'll see how that goes. But anyways, the next scene has to do with Blake, because they don't know what's going on with the relay tower. And Blake is in some trouble. And she looks right next to her. And as Blake looks terrified, she looks next to her and sees an Elysian guard who is dead right next to her, which makes her jump. Now, this leaves you to wonder, who could this have been? So going back from what I was stating, something kept her from taking care of this relay tower? Yeah, it is none other than Adam. That is a name I have not heard of in a long time. And Adam is finally here, and I'm going to say it, 2B makes that mask you're wearing over your face look better. Just throwing it out there right now. But, anyways, so Adam is back. And as he states, he's been waiting to get Blake alone for a while now. And for some fans, people have been questioning where Adam's been. Well, it seems that when he was on the train, that actually was him when Blake saw him. He was actually there the whole time. So, there you go. Adam was there. He doesn't have the hood anymore, though, but he's got the mask over his eyes, so there's that. And he starts to blame Blake for coming into his life and ruining it. And that's when Blake states that he chased her and stalked her throughout all of Anima. And then the fight continues, and Blake's not wrong. Adam has been stalking her this entire time, so for him to say that she ruined his life, well, that's not really true, because he decided to ruin his own life. And as the fight continues, it keeps going. While Blake is trying to escape Adam, he just keeps chasing after her. And he grabs her by the throat, and it gets to the point where they throw each other off of the tower, and they fall into the forest. breaking some branches until they finally hit the ground. And one thing I like about this is that they actually are changing scenery, because when it came to the previous volume, Volume 5, the problem was they stayed with very few selective scenes, especially the wretched room that they were in for 10 episodes out of the entire volume. They've been switching around scenery, and I've really liked that they are switching scenery around and moving from place to place. It makes it look more realistic, and I really like that they are throwing in more scenery, more areas when it comes to these fights. It's really good. So Blake gets up, and so does Adam, and as they get up, that's when Blake tells Adam to let go of the past and to do it for himself, because she's not wrong. He holds on to that. He holds on to the past too much. And that's when Adam gets frustrated, because he comes to believe that that's what Blake has done to him, is that she's totally forgotten about him and that nothing that they ever did mattered to him. And so now that he's mad at her over that one even, because he couldn't let go, but she could move forward, this infuriates Adam. And so Blake shouts his name out again. And Adam goes on to state that he's not going to let her go again. That he's not going to let her get away anymore. And that this is the end, basically. So they stare each other down, preparing their weapons. And then it just puts you on that cliffhanger of what's going to happen next. And one thing to look forward to is the Blake and Adam fight. Another thing is the Cordovan versus Team RWBY fight to look forward to. And there's a lot of things that I've got to say about this chapter. So let's go ahead and get into that. So when looking at this chapter, there's a lot of things I have to say about it. For one, I didn't mind the tone shift of it being kind of comical with the Cordovan scenes. That was fine with me. Now, the reason that this didn't bother me with Cordovan is because I've never really taken her character seriously, and she's really just seemed more like a gag character. So I never really think that they meant for her to be serious at all. And just making her seem more and more crazy as time goes on, because, like I stated, over and over again, she is nuts. Thinking that she should just use a giant mech to make an example of children. That is ridiculous. I mean, I don't hate the idea because it shows how insane she is, but I'm just saying, to think that, oh yeah, hey look, I got some children that are up against me, maybe I should just, oh I don't know, use the biggest thing in our arsenal and potentially blow them to Kingdom Come. Yeah, that's, oh boy, Cordovan. Wow. They wrote that to make her just sound like she deserves to be in a loony bin. I'm not even kidding. It makes you wonder, how did this woman get in charge of the Atlas base in Argus? This is ridiculous. But what this reminds me of is it reminds me of the Roman fight a little bit. Now, of course, this machine is way bigger than the Elysian Paladin 290, but to be fair, it is going back to the idea of fighting a giant mech. So I don't hate that. It kind of gives me a little bit of Volume 2 vibes. Like I said, just bigger. And this is something I like, and I think it's interesting that they decided to go with something like this. Now, Maria didn't help the situation with her jokes, but I did find this to be funny, because, like I said, I don't take Cordovan seriously, and I think that with Maria and Cordovan kind of attacking each other, I find it to be a very humorous scene, while at the same time showing some form of intimidation with the machine that Atlas has at its disposal at this military base. So I do like that. And when it comes to Ruby's speech to Crow, I like it for the most part. The parts I like about it are how she's talking about that everyone is trying to do their best and that they're trying to succeed with this mission, and I like that. But what I don't like is whenever she says that this is not Crow's responsibility. Well, to be fair, yes, it was Crow's responsibility because he told RWBY about the Haven attack that was getting ready to happen back at the end of Volume 3, and he knew she would go and try to take care of the situation also. So yes, this is on him there, and he was right about it being on Ozpin because, just like with Team RWBY, Ozpin also had it with Team Ranger that he watched over them and bent the rules for them. And if you think back to Volume 2, he bent the rules for Team RWBY to go on a mission that led them to Roman Torchwick and the White Fang and their activities. So, yeah, it's really on them. It's their responsibility that they led them to go on those missions to do these jobs. And it was Crow's fault that he led RWBY to go to Haven, because when he told her that information, he told her that information well knowing that she was going to do it. That's why he told her in the first place that there was going to be an attack on Haven, because that meant that they could go and take on the situation also. So, yes, it is his responsibility, and Crow's actually right in this situation, I think. But the first half of RWBY's speech, I do agree with. Just that last half, I think, felt off. But that's the only really big gripe I have about that one, is that, yeah, it was Crow's responsibility. But thinking about it also, another thing is that Adam. Now, Adam has been led up in this volume. He has been led up to be a big boss fight at some point, and I had speculated he would be a final boss. And really, for this volume, yeah, he is one of the two final bosses for the situation, but I still don't personally care for his character. Now, if we were to go back to the end of Volume 3, yeah, I thought there was huge potential for Adam's character. I thought that they could take him in a really good direction, because I liked the justice idea he had for the Faunus, in which, in the character short, he kept up to that. That was the reason why he was a part of the White Fang, was to bring justice to the Faunus because of the racism that the humans had against them. I think that that was a good motive at first. I liked that. But when they started making things more about Blake, and it just became all about Blake, I don't care for that, honestly. I think that that has really hurt Adam's character. I think that's affected him in the worst. And that feels like that's all he's about at this point, is just stalking Blake, because that's all that they've given us at this point. Volume 5 really shattered his character, I think, and I think it just really continued to hurt him that they are still making it all about Blake. Realistically, I just don't care for Adam. And that's just my personal opinion. If you like Adam, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with liking him. If you don't like him, that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. I just personally feel like they treated him unfairly, and I feel like the only thing that he's here for now is the conclusion to Blake and Yang's arc. I think that's really about it. Now, while they had him fight pretty well, in which I'll get to the animation in a moment, yeah, I didn't mind that. I mean, they've done him pretty well for this fight scene, but his motive is the same. And that's why I just don't really care for Adam now, but that's just me. Now, let's look at the animation, though. So, looking at the animation, with the Blake and the Adam fight, I think it was well done. I do actually like the first bit to this fight, and it's interesting, because what we did see in Volume 5, yeah, that was, let's be real, that was shameful. But, compared to that, and compared to this is much better for Adam. I do like that they actually made him competent. They didn't nerf him this time. He's fighting very well. I do like that part. And I thought it was kind of funny because he did immediately show up on different levels of the tower, though. Like when Blake went higher up, he was just immediately there. That was kind of funny that he just kind of showed up. It's like he was a specter or something. Like he just warped there and then attacked her. I thought that was pretty odd, but yeah, he got there. I mean, he just kind of, I guess, warped there somehow. But yeah, that's really what I can say about that. But the fluid motion was good. I mean, it was very up and in your face, though. They were very close to the screen, but I didn't mind it. I thought it was pretty good animation. It was not bad. It was decent on the speed levels, and so it's okay. It was not bad. It was a decent fight. But if I had to give this chapter overall a rating, it would be an 8 out of 10. Now, the reason why is mostly because of its comedy. I think the comedy was well. I think Cordovan needs to be in a nut house. And I think that the Blake and Adam fight was good for a start. And the tone shift is what I really liked. I liked how it could go from a humorous tone and then switch onward to a darker tone. Humorous with Cordovan, even though I think she needs to be in a nut house. And then the dark tone at the beginning with the Elysian soldier being dead and the Adam and Blake fight. Those are the things I really liked. But the things I didn't care for were just the end of Ruby's speech, but that's just a minor thing, and then Adam's motive. Those were really the only two things that just felt off to me, really. Something that I think could have probably been worked out a little bit better. But aside from that, I mean, I think the rest of this was a very enjoyable chapter. I think it was very good and pretty well put together for the most part. Those are really my thoughts on it. But anyways, I'll be back again on Tuesday. Let me know what you think down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. But anyways, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did enjoy, hit the video with a like, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and share this with your friends if you found this informative or useful. Well, anyways, I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful and fantastic day today, and remember, if today was not a good day, tomorrow could always be better. Take care of yourselves and everyone around you, and have yourselves a good one out there, everybody.